On today's episode of the Football Fellowship podcast, the Premier League title race continues to keep us on our toes. That inevitable City win streak that we're always talking about comes short as they drop points at home to Chelsea. And it was Arsenal and Liverpool who took full advantage with their 4 and 5 goal victories respectively. And just below the leaders, the race for European football continues. Brighton, United and Villa all picking up important victories, but it was Spurs who struggle again against that ever-improving Wolves side. And as always, make sure you stick around towards the end of the episode for some more rounds of Guess the Player. More rounds of the quiz for you to play along at home and watch how we do too.
Welcome back. That was Toby with the intro, and my name is Mevin. Thank you everyone for joining us. We're glad to have you with us. And there was a couple of places we could have started today's podcast. However, we decided to start with the Manchester City and Chelsea game, which was a 1-1 draw at the Etihad. And the reason why we're starting with that is because in the title run in Manchester City, who are always a bit of a juggernaut, go on a massive winning streak, they draw and they drop points against Chelsea, and a side which we've seen can do some damage against the citizens, as we saw a 4-4 draw back at Stamford Bridge early on in the season. And in this game, it was actually quite surprising, wasn't it, Toby, that in the first half, Chelsea were arguably the better side.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair to say. And I think the key aspect of that first half was Chelsea's attack down that right-hand side against City's defence on the left. I think it was quite clear that they had identified that that would be an area where the most space would have been. They would have probably predicted that Ake is going to be pushing up to support Doku, as we have seen in recent fixtures. And in this case, it was Kyle Walker, who was actually sitting back a little bit, which I think maybe was anticipating that Sterling was going to be the one who was breaking away. But it was all Chelsea down that right-hand side. And that is how they got their goal. And not only how they got their goal, but they had a very, very similar chance going down that right-hand side just moments before they scored. It was both of these attacks, balls through from Cole Palmer. The first one being through to... I can't remember who the first one was through to. It was Gallagher was playing through. He was playing on that right-sided 8, played through by Palmer, and he played it across to Jackson, who unfortunately the ball was a little bit behind him, couldn't quite get the touch. And on that second attack, it was swapped. It was Palmer through down that right-hand side into Jackson, who then played the ball inevitably across to Sterling, who finished really, really well. And for me, that was a clear area that Chelsea had identified to try and attack, and it was quite surprising, I think, to see those two attacks in quick succession and City not really react to that first one to try and prevent it for the goal.
It was really quite surprising, actually, and I think I was trying to figure out how Pochettino came up with these tactics. What has he identified in previous games? And I tell you what, I think it was actually the Manchester City versus Everton game where, you know, Everton did lose that game. Manchester City won it in the end quite comfortably, and Everton really left too many chances. But it was down that Man City left-hand side, and I think because the left back, whoever that is either inverting into the midfield or is going up really high to support Jeremy Doku, that there's a big space in there. And I think in the Everton game it was Dominic Calvert-Lewin. This time it was Cole Palmer, and there was just a massive space to draw out Ruben Dias into that area. And I thought to myself, every time Man City lost the possession of the ball, Chelsea were going down that side specifically. And I just thought to myself, it might be quite interesting. And it was something that I think Pep Guardiola didn't really get a handle on until I think the second half, in the fact that Man City were just completely dominant in that second half. But in that first half, Chelsea were... Yeah, like I said in the beginning, I think they were the better team in that first half. Created the better chances, looked more threatening. But then, to be fair, we do have to say it was a very off day by Erling Haaland. No matter how well the Chelsea played, I think an XG of 1.58 from his 3 chances, 3 big chances that he had in the game. He also had 5 chances in total. And I did think to myself that regardless of how well Chelsea play in this game, if Haaland had a better day, then, you know, Man City could have won the game 2-1, 3-1, 4-1. So you've got to count their lucky stars. But I think they thoroughly deserved it. And it's one where they've gotten 2 draws against Man City this season. And I think it was one where Chelsea can be very, very happy with the performance.
Yeah, that's the thing when you come up against City. No matter how well you play, you still sometimes do need that little bit of luck, because even on their off days, they can still punish you. If they would have just had one of those Haaland chances converted into a goal, it could have been a lot more comfortable for City. But as you said, Chelsea should be really, really happy with that performance. And as you said previously, it's another good performance against City. And as you were talking there about that space that Chelsea exploited, it's an interesting dilemma for City in that aspect, because that's a couple games now where that space has been, and it has potentially been exploited. And what is really the fix? I think in that second half, City were a lot better with Kyle Walker really pushing up and supporting the winger. In terms of sort of Foden and Alvarez getting in those positions, I think Walker does a much better supporting job in that role, up high and wide, compared to someone like Ake or Gvardiol. However, they also have that dilemma of they still sometimes do need to invert a player in to sit alongside Rodri, because that was the case that we saw in the previous Chelsea game where it was 4-4, and Chelsea really dominated that midfield area and were able to quite comfortably run through City's midfield. So I think they somehow need to find a balance of providing the attacking support from a fullback, whether that's through Ake or Walker and one sitting back and one inverting, because at the moment they're not really able to do both effectively when they are coming up against teams that are able to exploit that. So it'll be interesting to see if anything does change after this game, or whether they just sort of stick to their guns and try and find maybe a different solution to that, maybe having the centre-backs sitting a little bit deeper and are able to recover a little bit more when those teams are trying to get in behind.
Yeah, it's really tough because against most teams in the league, and even in some teams in the Champions League, Man City will win these games comfortably, and there'll be no talk about Man City having a weakness. It won't even be a discussion because they've hammered the team. But I think against some teams, when they do have high quality, I think in this game particularly, Conor Gallagher especially was a bit of a cheat code because of the fact that, you know, he's got such amazing running power and stamina, that in that midfield where Man City are inverting a defender into it when they've got 4 compared to Chelsea's 3, that he does, you know, kind of make up a 4th player because of the fact that he can run so much and for so long. So other teams won't have a player like Conor Gallagher who can do something like that and, you know, can run as long as he did in this game. But I also think that, you know, maybe the midfield of Rodri, Kevin De Bruyne and Julian Alvarez was a bit perhaps too attacking. You know, maybe someone like Phil Foden maybe in midfield would have been better than out wide, or Bernardo Silva in that midfield. Or I think, you know, maybe just give Mateo Kovacic a chance. I mean, he's been really well in the games that he has played. I mean, you could potentially play Mateus Nunes, but I think, you know, he hasn't really impressed so far this season, and it might be one where into the run in the 3 competitions left for Man City, I think it might be one where he might kind of, his minutes are, he's not going to get too many more for the remainder of the season. Perhaps even a Rico Lewis. But I think it is one where I think Julian Alvarez is a fantastic player, but defensively, he was playing the left side of that midfield 3. So could he have helped out Nathan Ake and Ruben Dias a bit more? And maybe Akanji, like you said, in the second half, when he dropped down a bit more and Kyle Walker went forward, they looked a bit more solid. But it just felt like it was a bit too attacking, a bit too naive, especially considering the fact that they drew 4-4 against Chelsea's side. You know they can hurt you. It just felt like one where maybe Pep Guardiola didn't learn from that game, which is really surprising to say about Pep, who's obviously a genius on this day.
Yeah, definitely in this sense, it seemed like it took City a lot longer to get into the game, which is something that we don't normally see from them. We normally see they have a very clear setup from the off, and they're playing that way throughout the whole game, where it did feel like they had to adapt a lot more in this game. As we were saying, Kyle Walker pushing up to try and support sort of Phil Foden and support that attack, which ultimately did result in their goal with Walker taking that shot and then it falling to Rodri, who did inevitably score. So it was a little bit strange that it did take them that long to get into the game, whereas Chelsea, on the other hand, had a game plan from the off. Sit fairly deep, their centre-backs average position sort of at the edge of the 18-yard box, and try and counter as much as they could and use that pace that they do have in the team, which did work really well. But again, as always with City, even when they don't get the points, there are still a lot of positives to take. They did create some good chances still, despite Chelsea having a pretty good game defensively. I think it's fair to say. I think Gusto and Disasi both had really, really good games. But on another day, and to be honest, on most days, the way that we normally see from Erling Haaland, it could have been 3 and 4, and it could have been a completely different result.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, it was such an off day. It's really weird to see. And, he's on the back of scoring two against Everton last weekend. So, in another day, he absolutely does take those chances. Because let's talk about the goals, because we kind of touched on them, but we haven't gone into real depth. I think for Chelsea, the first goal was definitely one that was coming. I think, like we said, going down Man City's left-hand side, it was definitely an area of the pitch where they were really dominating and really hurting City. But I do have to think to myself, Kyle Walker, what is he doing in that goal? Because I think he makes two mistakes. The first one, obviously, the most obvious one, is the fact that he starts running towards Nicholas Jackson, who's running through. And I'm just thinking to myself, you just left Raheem Sterling in acres of space completely free. And you can even see at a moment in time when he notices he's made the mistake, he starts pointing to Emmanuel Kanji saying, no, you grab him, I'm going to go with Sterling, as if that's not what Kanji should have been doing anyway, and that's what he was. And then Nicholas Jackson plays the ball across to Sterling, and obviously he has a good touch, and then therefore it's like, right, he's about to shoot. But then Kyle Walker then makes a second mistake of he lets Raheem Sterling cut inside on his right foot. He's your former teammate for Man City. He's your teammate for England. Sterling wants to shoot on his right foot. And I just thought to myself, that's two instances there. First one, running towards Nicola Jackson, leaving Sterling free. Second one, letting Sterling cut inside on his right foot. It just felt like two mistakes that could have been avoided, even though I think at that point Chelsea did deserve to go. And the second one, obviously Man City's goal for Rodri. I mean, is he the most clutch player in the league, Toby?
Yeah, he seems like as more time he's getting with City, the further forward he's getting at times, and he's really becoming sort of in the latter stages of games, definitely not a 6 and like a box crashing 8 or even 10, the way he gets into the area and the way he can just... his positional awareness is so good. He knows exactly where to be at the right time. I don't think it's chance that he is the one coming up with goals. You can see him observing the play, waiting to see when is the right time to strike and waiting to see where the right area to go is, and he's always in the right position. And to have that sort of attacking, almost strike-like instinct as a 6 just speaks volumes of his football IQ, really. And it was actually really annoying. I think this one took a deflection, because on the replays, I actually think it was going right into the bottom corner and it would have been a goal anyway. So it felt a bit sort of a shame that it took a deflection and it made it maybe question whether the keeper would have saved it or it would have gone in, because it was a really, really sweet strike, really well hit with his weak foot. And yeah, as you've said, another clutch goal for Rodri in the dying moments. And just speaking of the dying moments, I wanted to touch on this actually, because if I was a Chelsea fan, there was a stage at the end of the game where I would have been absolutely fuming. It was Enzo Fernandez and Conor Gallagher were both sort of screaming to the ref for the time to be over in stoppage time. I think it had gone over sort of the minimum allocated time. And they were sort of running over to the ref as the game was almost already still going. And there was a long ball played over the top, which was then headed back in for a chance in the box. And it was both Enzo and Gallagher who were out of position for that really late chance that City could have got a winner. And I was watching and thinking, if that has gone in and your two sort of midfielders who should be covering the area where they were out of position because they were running to the ref to ask him to blow the whistle, I would have been absolutely fuming. And I think that sort of highlighted maybe sort of the youth and inexperience in that Chelsea side, where it has shown and it has caused some struggles recently, was really, really key. And if I was sort of Chelsea's coaching department or Pochettino and I was looking at that, I would be like, you have got to rule that out, because that just is something that cannot happen, especially in a game of this size against an opponent like City.
I'll be completely honest, I didn't see it at all. I think I was probably watching the ball, because I was just like, okay, can Manchester City get this winner? Can they get it over the line? Well, for the sake of, from a Liverpool fan, I really hope not. But honestly, I did not even see Gallagher. I didn't even see Enzo. And I don't think even social media saw this. And to be fair, if that ball did go in the back of the net in that last minute or last few seconds, trust me, social media definitely would have caught it. You definitely would have seen it. And I think I completely agree. I do think, though, the youth is something to be praised, because I think in this game, like you said, you called out Gusto and Disasi for having fantastic games, and I agree. I would also want to give a shout out to, I think, Levi Colwill playing a left centre back, finally at left centre back and not left back anymore. Finally getting a left back, and centre back to centre back, and just I think the fact that Cole Palmer, Nicholas Jackson, all these players who've who have been having bright moments over the course of the season are now putting in consistent game time. It's really good to see. And if anything, it's arguably been the more experienced players in the likes of Thiago Silva, who unfortunately I think it might just be the case of his legs are going a little bit, and Raheem Sterling, who in this game did really well, but in games previously he has looked like the weakest of the Chelsea attackers. I think it has been the youth to celebrate, and I think for Chelsea going forward, if they can just get them some consistency, I think they've got a very bright future. Maybe not this season, definitely not this season, I don't think. But I think for next season and going forward, there's some very promising signs for the Chelsea faithful.
Yeah, that's the thing with having such a young squad. It does come with some cons, like I said, but in this game, it definitely seemed like the pros of that outweighed it. They showed a lot of energy, a lot of fight at times, and as you've said, something to build on. Not going to drastically change their season. I don't think we can sort of overemphasize the performance and how they have been playing recently with this one result, but definitely showing good signs. And as you've said, they've just got to keep building and growing.
Absolutely. And another team who just go from strength to strength is Arsenal, as they beat Burnley 5-0 away from home. Last week, they beat West Ham 6-0 at the London Stadium. The week before, they beat the title rivals Liverpool 3-1. And as an Arsenal fan, you must be absolutely over the moon at the moment, Toby.
Yeah, 21 goals in the last 5 games. Only 2 conceded. It's a really, really nice run, and it's a really nice run at the right time. Last season was a really, really great season, but having that run at the start of the season, we almost sort of lost our legs and it came at the wrong time. Whereas now, we're having this run, we've just got to keep it going week by week. We've obviously got Champions League midweek this week, and then just got to keep it up, just got to keep the momentum up, and we're playing really, really well. And as we've sort of mentioned, it seems that Dubai trip has done wonders because the squad looks rejuvenated. They look really, really hungry. In these big victories, you can see players really, really wanting to score, but also really, really wanting to support their teammates. They're not being too greedy. They're having a lot of sort of interchange, and I think everyone just seems to be on the same sort of wavelength at the moment. And it's, as an Arsenal fan, it's great. I've got no complaints.
I'm not surprised whatsoever. And I saw a stat which I thought was quite interesting, because oftentimes with teams over the winter period, sometimes they can be a bit leggy, they can have a few injuries. And I thought one that really summed up the fact that Arsenal were doing well at this moment was the fact that for the first time in the club's history, Arsenal have won the 5 games at the beginning of the calendar year. And I just thought to myself, Arsenal are completely hitting the ground running at exactly the right time when it's required, and definitely showing, Liverpool and potentially even Manchester City a bit of shame and potentially how it's done. But in this game, I thought one player in particular, Martin Odegaard, again was fantastic. I highlighted him against West Ham. I thought he's great in that game, against Liverpool as well. And I think it's one where your captain is absolutely stepping up to the plate, because not only did he get the first goal, he got one of the assists, I think, for Saka's second goal, the third Arsenal goal altogether. I just thought his pressing from the front was excellent. I just thought he epitomised everything about Arsenal's performance in this game. I just wanted to give him a shout out, because often he doesn't always get the credit that he deserves, sometimes because people often pigeonhole him as a very attacking flair player, maybe a bit of a luxury, but his defensive work rate and output is actually so crucial to the way Arsenal play and press and win the ball back. And I just wanted to say, I think Martin Odegaard has been fantastic for Arsenal so far this season.
Yeah, for sure. He's normally leads the line, and that's in our press in sort of a 4-4-2. It's normally him and the striker, in this case Trossard, pressing, or it can also occasionally be Havertz alongside the striker. But he is the one, whether he's in that sort of midfield 2 on the press or as one of the strikers in the press, that really leads it and initiates it. And I think that's a really key point of him being captain, that he's not sort of the loudest player. He's not going to be the one shouting at people, but it's people looking at him. He doesn't need to make a big noise to be a leader. People are looking at him because of his football IQ really is a massive, massive thing. His positioning is fantastic. He's technically one of the best players in the league, I think, in terms of his touch. And you can really see, I think, the Arsenal squad around him look to him as a leader. And he does that on and off the pitch by the sounds of it. So yeah, as you've said, a really, really good performance. I think it was a goal and 2 assists in this game, just stepping up. And I think that's something that we have missed. A lot of people were saying that we do need that new number 9 to score the goals. But when you look at the output sort of last season, it was Saka, Martinelli and Odegaard the ones chipping in most with those goals, as opposed to whoever was playing up front, it being Trossard, Jesus or Nketiah. And it seems now in this period, it is those players who have stepped up with the goals and assists that they were getting last season. And that was the area that we were missing in that poor run of form we were going on before Christmas.
I did notice something, and I don't believe it, but I just thought it'd be interesting, and I wanted to ask you, because you watch every Arsenal game, you're in, social circles with Arsenal fans. And so the last 3 games, you haven't had Gabriel Jesus, and you've gone on and scored, 11, 14 goals. Are you a better attack without Jesus?
For me personally, I don't think so. I think Jesus is very, very important to the way we play, and I think that Trossard and Havertz, I think, can replicate that, but also bring slightly different things as well. I don't think Trossard and Havertz link the play as well, but with Havertz you do get that additional benefit of his aerial threat, and with Trossard you do get a better finisher. But I think with both of them, you do lose slight build-up. I think Jesus is a much better passer. If you've got sort of Saka and Martinelli running through on the break, Jesus is fantastic when he gets that ball, turns and plays sort of a long through ball through, is a really, really good asset to have. But I don't think that's a negative on either of them. I think having those 3 players can play up front is really good because they'll fit different situations. Havertz is good against sort of a big team where if you're going to be struggling in terms of possession, you can play it up to him and he can hold it up. Jesus, I think, is very, very effective against low blocks and in teams where Saka and Martinelli may have sort of space in that inside channel. And I think Trossard can almost do sort of a combination of all of them. So having those options is really, really key. But I still think for me, Jesus is probably the best overall in terms of the way that we do play. But the way we've been playing with them up front, they're just showing that people like Trossard, who are normally going to be on the bench, are really, really sort of fighting to be in that starting 11 every week, even if Jesus wasn't injured.
Okay, fair enough. I do agree, but I just thought it was an interesting coincidence. I thought I'd just ask you on it. Now let's talk about Burnley, because if you break down the goals, I think arguably the first one, the strike from Odegaard outside the box. The second one, Saka's second, Arsenal's third, when Saka hits it into the roof of the net. I think both of those goals, the first and the third, I don't think you can really have too much of a go at Burnley. Maybe you can nitpick, but I think they were well-worked goals from Arsenal and wonderful strikes. For Vincent Kompany's men, the second one, the penalty. The third one from Trossard, which they should have got cleared. And the last one, which is just from a throw-in. There's some really, really, really poor goals to concede, and the manner in which they concede them are extremely poor. And every week we do find ourselves saying, "Oh, come on, Burnley! They need to score more goals, concede less." But I just can't see it for Burnley anymore. I'll be honest, and it does seem like they're headed back for the relegation zone. Is that how you see it as well?
I think so. I think it's probably a fair bet to place that Burnley will be going down, and this game could be a pretty key example of why they left so much space in the wrong areas, especially against Arsenal. You should be able to identify that players like Saka, Odegaard and Martinelli are going to be those men that you do sometimes need to double up on. There wasn't much sort of defensive intensity. It was quite easy for Arsenal at times, and as you said, especially on that 4th and 5th goal, it seemed like they had just given up by then, and the defensive shape was all over the place. So it's not looking good for Burnley. There's going to have to be a lot of change, and I think a lot of change in tactic as well. I think probably it's going to get to the last 10 games and they are going to be still sort of 6, 7, 8 points adrift, and I think if there's only any way for them to stay up, it's going to have to be complete low block and just go for counters, because I don't think the way they play and the quality they have in their squad is going to be enough to keep them up. I don't know if there really is much they can do to do so. Do you think there is anything that Burnley can do or change that would give them a bit more of a fighting chance?
I do think so. I do think they can just abandon the principles of playing good attacking football, playing out there on the back. But I don't think Vincent Kompany will do that. I don't think he'll want to play with 10 men behind the ball and hit the team on the counter-attack. And I don't think that's how he sees the game, and I don't think that's how he wants his teams to play. Would that mean... I don't know what you do if you change your principles midway through a season, and especially now when you're desperate. What does that say? Does that potentially say that the principles that you had were wrong and they wouldn't work anyway? What kind of message does that send to the fans? What kind of message does that to the players especially? But if you want to stay in the league, then, you've got to adapt a little bit. And we've been saying all season long that Burnley haven't changed their way or adapted to suit the Premier League and suit the quality of opposition that they play against. They still try and play the same way they did in the Championship. And clearly, after 25 games, they are still sticking to their guns, and Company's still sticking to my guns, which goes to show I don't think he will change it. But now I'm trying to think, is it perhaps... I don't want to label this at him because I think he's a very nice guy and I think he's going to be a great manager in the future, but is he potentially sticking to his guns and the principles of his play so that when he does leave Burnley in his next job, that it looks more appealing than if he were to abandon his principles? Then it'd be like, well, you came playing this style of football, you now change it because it doesn't work in the league. What does that say about you and how you want to play? So is it a bit of, trying to look good, a bit of PR, so then when, I think inevitably when Burnley get relegated and when he leaves at the end of the season, he can still get a good job next year? I mean, it's an interesting way of thinking about it. Is it one where you can see it?
I can certainly potentially see that. I'm not sure if that's what he'll be thinking. It may be subconsciously in a way he does know he wants to be sort of eventually in that sort of elite tier of management. I think a lot of it is just obviously coming from City and playing under Guardiola, I think has clearly influenced him. And it has in the case, obviously, of the opposition this weekend in terms of Arsenal and Mikel Arteta. I think if Mikel Arteta was at Burnley and in the same situation as Company, I don't know if he'd be doing much better in terms of sort of implementing his style, because it's very similar in a lot of ways. And I just think it's not the right club, it's not the right time. It worked very well in the Championship, given that their squad was a lot probably stronger than the opposition around them. But as you said, they need to adapt. You can't just go in and play sort of a very expansive style of play, being one of the sides with a weaker squad in comparison to the league. You look at sort of Luton. They are still using the same principles that they had in the Championship that put them on that really good run, that got them into the playoffs and inevitably won them the playoffs. But they have tweaked a lot of things. They at times are not as dynamic with their wing backs because they know they have to sit back. They've brought in certain players. They've brought in Premier League experience in some players as well. And they have changed things that has given them more of a fighting chance whilst not abandoning the principles that got them there in the first place. And I think that's something that Company needed to use, is maybe too late to use, and something that he probably will have to use if he does move on after this. I don't think the style of play that he has is going to get him a big job, but it will at least, I suppose, be a learning experience in a way.
Well, it's quite interesting actually, because I was just, I was making my point and I was talking, and it was kind of developing as I was saying it, and I didn't really think of it beforehand. But it is quite interesting because when you say it's not the right club and not the right time, I would say that, last season, when he joined Burnley for the first time, he was replacing Sean Dyche and a side who, were, how Sean Dyche plays, 4-4-2, very defensive, trying to hit teams on the counter-attack. But it was the right club in the fact that they had the parachute payments when they went down. They had the opportunity to completely reinvent that squad and implement a new style of football, which he absolutely did. And so at that time, it was the right club and it was the right time. And then he was being linked with a Spurs job, I remember at one point, and people were saying, obviously, he's not going to take it. Why would he? He's going to come up with his Burnley side and he's going to get lots of time. And then the Spurs job is a poison chalice, and we've seen what Andrew's done now, so who knows. But it did seem like the right club at the right time. And a lot of people had them staying up. We had them, staying up in the league. I think I had them maybe 12 or 13. I think maybe you were a bit more conservative than I was. But I was thinking to myself, okay, this is going to be easy for them. But then maybe it just goes to show that, like you said, that they didn't adapt the same way that Luton per se have. But Luton were always the ultimate underdogs. There was some expectation on this Burnley side. So it's just quite interesting because after 25 games, they're on 13 points, 7 points off safety, the same amount of points as Sheffield United. So it does seem like one where they're headed for the Championship again. But finally, on Arsenal, another fantastic performance. And the Champions League in midweek as well. So, where do you see Arsenal season heading? Can you see one where they compete for both the Premier League and the Champions League, or do you think they have to prioritise one?
I don't think we will be able to prioritise one. I don't think we're going to get that opportunity. I think Arteta and the club know how much this sort of Champions League season means. It has been such a long time since we've been in it, and for a club of our size, far, far too long it has been since we've been in it. So I think we will be doing our best to manage both. The opportunity is there for the league at the moment. We are 100% still in and around that conversation. We've got that huge Man City game next month, which could be the decider. And I think for now, it won't be a case of prioritising one or the other. It'll be keeping both going as long as we can. When one gets to a point where, say, if we're knocked out of the Champions League, or we go on a poor run, or we lose that Man City game, then things may change. But for now, if other teams are able to compete in all the cup competitions, Europe and the league, then the squad we have at the moment, we should be able to do the same. And hopefully we can.
Well said. Well, then we should move on to our next game, which is Brentford 1, Liverpool 4, which was the early kickoff on the Saturday, and Jurgen Klopp is always complaining about the early kickoff. However, Liverpool have a perfect record in the 12:30s on Saturdays, which just goes to show that, maybe all the things that Jurgen Klopp's saying, maybe just a bit of PR. But what wasn't PR was the fact that Liverpool absolutely comprehensively beat Brentford, but it was a bit tainted because of the fact that Liverpool lost Diogo Jota, Curtis Jones, Darwin Núñez, and potentially there are rumours about Mohamed Salah being injured as well. But we'll come on to those because, Toby, how good were Liverpool on the day?
Yeah, I thought they were really good, and I have been a very slight Liverpool critic, I would say, recently when I have watched them. I haven't always been super convinced. I think they have looked a little bit sluggish at times. I don't think that attacking chemistry has been there throughout the entirety of games at times. I think it's taken you a while to sort of build into games. Whereas I think in this case, you looked really, really good from the off and looked really dangerous from the off. And despite these injuries, and you would expect in a game that had these injuries to the likes of Jota and Núñez and Jones as well, you would expect the sort of attacking unit to be a bit all over the place. But I think you reacted to everything really, really well. And for me, it was probably one of your most convincing attacking performances that I've seen in a long, long time. I think not a long time, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but in a few games. I think it was really, really good. I was very impressed with Gakpo when he came on. I think he looked great. And again, someone I haven't been too sure of. I think Diaz looked really good. And of course, having Salah back in that game, he is just so, so good. It's looked like he hasn't had any sort of injury whatsoever. Came straight in. A goal and an assist straight off the bat. Just, yeah, every team in the world would miss a play like that, and it clearly made an impact in that second half, having him in there as well. So yeah, I was very impressed, and to be honest, quite worried as an Arsenal fan.
Well, I don't think there's anything more about just yet. There's still a lot of football to be played, but I do think the fact that Salah had to come on was a bit of a worry because he'd just come back from an injury. You've seen what happened with Trent Alexander-Arnold and Dominic Szoboszlai. They've come back from their injuries against Chelsea, and then of course they go and get injured again of the same issues and just becomes inflated. So it was a bit of a worry when you saw him come on, and there are rumours, but nothing's concrete about the fact that Salah has re-aggravated his hamstring injury, which all Liverpool fans they're crossing their fingers with the cup final on the weekend. But I think it's actually the Jones injury in the first half, which actually, in a weird way, helped Liverpool. Because Brentford were on top for the first 20-25 minutes. It was close, but they definitely were having the edge. And I think it's the fact that Jones went down and he was able to break up the play a bit. It gave Liverpool a couple of minutes to reassess and reevaluate what was going on. And then just from the Brentford free kick, their own set piece, which they are very good at, in which Liverpool countered. And I thought it was a fantastic header by Diogo Jota, running towards the opposition goal, facing the wrong way, and he's able to with the side of his head, but also a little bit of the back. And I thought the finish by Darwin Núñez was absolutely exquisite. And it was weird to see that Núñez, despite the fact that he finished the shot really well, still got some critics. I saw Michael Owen on Twitter saying that the fact that he needs to be putting that ball either to the left or the right of the keeper, and that the scoop is a bit of a high risk finish, especially when Mark Flecken stood up. But I thought to myself, you got to enjoy it. I mean, Núñez will always be Núñez. I think he will always need a couple of chances to be able to score goals. But I just thought that finish was just absolutely immaculate. And then so was Alexis McAllister, so was Salah, so was Cody Gakpo. And I think Liverpool really, deserved the 4-1 win on the day, because after that 20-25 minutes, it was all Liverpool. But Brentford, Tony had been back now, and in the 5 games he started, he scored 4 goals, which is a massive, massive plus. But they haven't been great form recently, have they?
No, still struggling a bit, especially defensively. They have not looked as solid as they have the past couple seasons, looking quite open at times. And I think this season it might be a case that they are still sort of playing a very similar style of play as they have done the last couple of years, where they do have quite expansive wing backs. They are not afraid to play out from the back. They are not afraid to leave space because they are confident in their team. It's confident in their attacking unit and confident that that space won't be exploited. And this season they are struggling. They are down there. And Tony has come back in and performed really well and got them some goals, but it's not really going forward that seems to be the issue. It does seem to be defensively, and I'm not exactly sure what has changed. Obviously, Rico Henry has been a big loss for them, but I'm not really sure where things aren't going as well for Brentford. Is there any areas that you think you can identify that maybe have decreased since last season and need a bit of improvement?
Oh god, that's tough. I think, yeah, like you said, absolutely. Rico Henry is a massive blow, but hopefully now with Sir Dreglon coming in, he is a very much a like-for-like kind of player. It does mean that Lewis Potter won't have to play there as much as wing-back. I will say, I think Aaron Hickey, has picked up a bit of a knock, so at right wing-back they are having a bit of an issue as well. I think against Liverpool, Ethan Pinnock wasn't available at the back, and I think we saw for, Salah's goal, the third goal for Liverpool, I thought we saw just that back three with just, the communication wasn't quite there. I think it was Go to Capco with the header, Collins and me kind of just stare at it and did who wants to go get it, and then Salah capitalizes on it, and I think Collins isn't strong enough to then get the ball off Mohamed Salah. But it is a bit weird. I think maybe you could argue maybe that David Raya is a bit of a miss. I think, he's been criticised, especially at the beginning of the season for Arsenal, for the fact that, he's been letting in some goals where maybe he shouldn't have. Arguably his distribution wasn't as good, but I think that's definitely improved since the turn of the year. And I think Mark Fecken's still done the right job. I don't think it's noticeable. Well, I think it is a bit of a step down to David Raya, but I don't think it's so massive that it's going to be a massive issue for Brentford. It does just seem like even forwards, Tony and Buemo, Wissa not always being there. It just feels like there's so many injuries or players unavailable through different reasons, suspension, AFCON, just at the wrong time, so they can never get the perfect chemistry. It'll be interesting to see and actually look back, and we might do this for the next podcast, but the last time they had the full strength side, 1 to 11, because for all, I think they're a good side. They won't get relegated, Brentford, but it is just, you expect just a little bit more, don't you?
Yeah, I hope they don't get relegated because I think they're a really good side in the Prem. I really like watching Brentford and I've got a lot of time for them and I like a lot of their players. So hopefully they can pick up a few more points. And I think, again, they will be fine. And maybe in the case of this game, they were a little bit unlucky because I'm not quite sure how they didn't get a pen around the 70th minute on when Robbo sort of charged into... I'm not sure whose back it was. I think it may have been Tony's. For me, that was definitely a pen, and it may have been a little bit too late at that time. They could have made it, I suppose it would have been 3-2, but felt a little bit unlucky and a bit harsh. What did you make of it? Do you reckon it was a pen?
Yeah, it was into the back of Ivan Toney, and I thought to myself, yeah, that's a Stonewall pen. I'm not even going to lie, I'm not going to try and put any spin on it. It was a Stonewall pen. Robertson's jumping in the air. Tony, it was clever, and he shielded the ball, so that would mean that Robertson had to go through the back of him. But Robertson jumping, being in the air, he's lost control of himself, and he's going into the back of Tony. It's a pen. And I think maybe if it was a player who was less strong than Ivan Toney, obviously Tony is, he's well built, he's very strong and physical. If it was maybe another player, I think they get it, but I think maybe the referee thought, oh, it's Ivan Toney, maybe he could be a bit stronger there, but I won't lie, that was definitely a pen, and I think Liverpool definitely got away with one. I don't think it would have been an issue to the final result of the game, but it definitely could have been a tough and tricky last 10 to 15 minutes for Liverpool.
Yeah, I don't think it would have had too much of an impact, but you never know. Strange things have happened, and ultimately ended up Liverpool getting a fourth goal through Cody Gakpo, and I think his celebration for the goal was quite telling. He seemed very relieved to get that goal. It was his first league goal since New Year's Day, hasn't had too much sort of game time, And now this could be sort of his time to shine with the injuries that have happened. He is a really good, talented player. We've seen in the Dutch league how good he was. He maybe hasn't shone as brightly as some were expecting, but I think that'll be great for his confidence. It was a really nice finish, and it'll be interesting to see the role that he does play over the next couple of weeks. We've seen him from the left, we've seen him play as a false nine, we've even seen him from the right, almost as a right wing / false nine hybrid at times, filling in that space and sort of swapping with Harvey Elliott, which I think could be quite an interesting combo, which we may see obviously with Jones and potentially Salah and potentially Jota out. That could be quite an exciting right-hand side to see at times, albeit not the best defensively. So it'll be interesting to see, and hopefully it'll be good for him to get some more minutes in.
And talking of attacking players, Brighton 5 as they beat Sheffield United for the second time since the new year. Brighton have smashed Sheffield United by 5 goals. And yes, it was the 4 players who got the goals for Brighton in this game. Oh, but Toby, there's only one place to start, isn't there? Mason Holgate's red card in the 12th minute. What on earth was he thinking?
Yeah, it's up there with one of the worst challenges I think we've seen for a long time. It was awful. It was almost everything wrong that you could have in a challenge. It was a high boot, studs up, a scissor off the ground, out of control, a Stonewall red card, and one that was very, very surprising that it even had to go to VAR to give it. Maybe the ref wasn't in the best position. I'm not too sure. But yeah, an absolutely awful challenge. Rightfully a red card, and I think it was game over from there. Against Brighton, they are a very high possession side, and when you are a man down trying to press, trying to defend against Brighton, it was game over, and it just basically threw the game away for them from there.
Yeah, and I think, to be fair, in that instance, that's exactly why you do need VAR, because that was an absolutely horror challenge. It could have potentially, given Matoma a serious injury, could have potentially ended his career. So that is exactly why you do need VAR. I will give the referee on field a bit of slack on that as well, I think, because I think it was very early in the game, so the referee's going, oh, okay, it's not too bad. I think also with his training leg, he does catch the ball, and I think the angle the referee was at, that he couldn't particularly exactly see the contact between Holgate and Matoma's knee. But as soon as the referee saw it on VAR, I'm so glad that, he did get that as a red card, because that's exactly what it did deserve. But like you said, he absolutely stitched in his teammates and Chris Wilder, because from there on, it was all Brighton. Buonanotte with the first goal. And I just thought to myself, I think it's classic Sheffield United this season. The fact that, Lewis Dunk, one of Brighton's biggest aerial threats, is left free on the back post is just criminal. It is absolutely criminal. And it's no surprise that Sheffield United have conceded so many goals. For the fact that he's not marked at the back post, and then Buonanotte 3 yards out, he's got about 4 Sheffield United players around him, but no one is on him. And I think it's the small minuscule details which really, really matter, which Sheffield United have just not been able to hack this season. And then from there on there, it was all Brighton, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it was even that second goal was a carbon copy of the first. It was a long ball in from Gross into the back post, and again an unmarked man there. It was Matoma on the second one who played it across, and Fotheringham just sort of palmed it out. Not the best of saves, not a strong enough wrist to really push it out. Fell to Welbeck unmarked, who was able to put it in. And to concede 2 goals that were very, very similar in 5 minutes is never a good sign in terms of a defence. And yeah, 2-0 down to Brighton. They almost had no chance from there on out. And in that second half, just a lot of possession for Brighton. And I think where they were able to get those extra goals was when Simon Adingra really came in. I think Brighton have really, really missed him. He was the young player of the tournament at AFCON. He's a very, very exciting player. And without him and the injuries they have had sort of in recent weeks, they've missed a lot of those wide players. They've been playing a lot of different systems. They've been playing with wing backs at times, whether that's Estupinian, Lamptey, even Gross sitting in there sometimes, because they haven't really had 2 wingers on either side that can play. In this game now, obviously when Adingra came in, it was Matoma and Adingra who, for me, are definitely their best wingers. And De Zerbi, I think, really wants to play in a system that does have 2 wingers. March has been out for a while and he has been a massive miss. So I think now having Adingra to come back from AFCON, I think will be really, really good for Brighton and really bring some intensity that they have missed in recent weeks, especially in games where they have struggled to score.
Yeah, that's a great chat. I completely forgot about Solly March, a very underrated player who Brighton, really sorely missed. I remember at one point, I think it was early on in the season before he picked up his injury, where there was a bit of a debate about would you take Anthony from Man United or Solly Marsh? And I did think to myself that was quite funny, but that just showed that, the quality of Solly Marsh had been reaching at the moment. And I think I completely agree. I think Adingra was fantastic. I mean, coming back after winning with Ivory Coast, or Cote d'Ivoire, I should probably say, and the fact that he was phenomenal for them. And I think, Brighton thoroughly did miss him. But I think it just goes to show that, this Brighton side, everyone has had injuries this season, absolutely everyone, and you can make excuses for everyone. But Brighton have been no exceptions to that. I mean, and some of the most crucial players, some of the players who'd arguably be in their first team week in, week out, have been out injured this season. And now that, Mitoma's back from the Asia Cup as well, and the fact that thankfully he didn't get his leg snapped by Mason Holgate, they're starting to really burn out Brighton. They're still a bit inconsistent with a couple of draws, a couple of wins, the occasional loss, but with now going forward, you can really see them making a challenge for the Europa League places. I do think that perhaps the Champions League is a bit too far away from them now. I think Man United probably picked a form at the right time, and I do think they're a little bit way off Spurs and Aston Villa. But I think that's also because they're in the fact in the Europa League and they're doing so fantastically well. But do you agree on that? Do you think it's probably just Europa League for them this season, where they can try to achieve, or do you think that they could be outside chances for the Champions League as well?
Yeah, I think the Europa League that they are in currently has thrown off a bit of that consistency and the consistency that they would have needed to get into sort of the top 5 places. A little bit too late now, but they are certainly in and around contention of European football next season again. Looking at sort of Newcastle, Man United and themselves, I think are still in there. And consistency is that key word, and it's something they've really missed. They need to get a good string of some comfortable victories because it's been very, very up and down so far this season, and I think that just comes hand in hand with playing Thursday night football. But hopefully they can sort of continue playing well in both competitions, find the right balance and carry on. For Sheffield United, it's not looking so bright at all. They are now they've conceded 2.6 goals on average across all games this season. They are on track for the worst defensive season in Premier League history. They are on track to concede over 100 goals, and I think they're probably just lucky they've already got 13 points and can't beat Derby's 11, because it doesn't seem to be getting better at all, and if anything, it seems to be getting worse.
Yeah, well, they're breaking all the stats, but all for all the wrong reasons. Here's another one for you. They conceded the most goals after 25 games, which is 65. So yeah, like I said, 2.6 per game. It's been absolutely awful. And it is one, again, where you look back at the beginning of the season, were they probably prepared for the season? Was Paul Heckingbottom the right man? The fact that they sacked him, Chris Wallace come in, they haven't really noticed too much of a difference. They have obviously tried their best in the transfer market, obviously with the limited resources that they do have. But again, it's not been enough, and it's been far too late at that point. And I think it's now where, Sheffield United are obviously going to go down. I don't think you find many Sheffield United fans who'd say they have a chance. I actually feel sorry for the fact that, Blades fans have to go and watch the side, because I don't think I think it's the third home game in a row that they conceded 5 goals now. So I just really, really poor viewing. And it's not fun to be a Sheffield United fan. But thankfully, maybe next season will be a bit more fun in the Championship.
Yeah, when you're in and around those relegation positions, having a strong home record is something that can make the world of difference. And when you're conceding 5 goals back to back at home, it's you've got almost no chance, really.
Yeah, absolutely. But then let's move on to the most important game and let the Wolves' loving continue. But this time against Spurs, as they have beaten Tottenham Hotspur for the second time this season. This time in the new Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, 2-1. And let's just take off our clothes. Let's just reveal our Wolves t-shirts, Toby, because we love Wolves and they've done it again.
Yeah, they are the official team of the Football Fellowship podcast, I think it's fair to say. It used to be Everton at the start of the season before they started to drop off. And Wolves have jumped up into the team in our hearts at the moment, because they are just really, really good to watch, and they keep getting really good results. They've got a very, very well-balanced team. They've got a very clear system that they play. Really good attacking unit, as we have said numerous times, probably almost every episode at this point. Just a really, really good team, and they seem to keep getting better. And I'm really excited, I think, for the start of next season to see if they can keep it up already. I know there's a long way to go this season, but I'm really intrigued to see what they do in summer, how much they can sort of gamble on how they're playing at the moment, because I think with a little bit more reinforcement, a little bit more time with the squad and the players that I think are really quality in there, they could push up and sort of be almost in that sort of Brighton area, a team where people look at and say, oh, they're really underrated, they play really good football, and they do get a lot of results. So yeah, another really, really good performance. And I think an aspect in this game that was really good to see was not only sort of their counter-attacking football, but also I think that first goal was a really, really well-worked set piece for Wolves. There was a very sort of clear blocking system from their players. It was Kilman who was screening against Romero and Son, and he did it fantastically. Both players were completely out of sort of the zonal structure that they were meant to be in, and it meant that Gomes had a free header. It was very, very well set up. I don't think Spurs were particularly doing anything wrong, but the way Wolves set up for that corner, I think, was fantastic. And having not only sort of their very solid defensive football, their expansive midfielder and wing backs and their attacking unit, but having these sort of really, really well thought out systems on set pieces is just another weapon in their growing arsenal, really.
Yeah, I think that first goal, it looked even worse because of the fact that Gomes was just standing there and he didn't really have to move much at all. If he was maybe perhaps making a run late into the box or making a run from the edge of the box, then maybe you can go, okay, he's got the momentum, the Spurs defenders are standing still and there's only marking. But it wasn't even that. He was standing still himself. And I think it just, on the eye, as a football fan, it just looked like an awful goal to concede. But I do agree, it was really, really well worked. And so was the second goal for Wolves. However, obviously in between, I think Spurs went in at halftime and they clearly went, right, that simply wasn't good enough. Wolves were all over them in that first half. I don't think Spurs had a shot on target in that first half, which is really, really surprising. I don't think Jose Sa had a save to make. But in that second half, I think it was very, very lucky in the way that Kulusevski ended up gathering the ball to his feet. But I think once he got the ball, that was absolutely magic. The way he, skimmed Dawson, who I think has had a fantastic season, is a fantastic player. But I think that was really bad defending. And the fact that he could just toe poke it past Jose Sa in goal as well. 34 seconds, I think it was, after this, immediately after the restart for the second half. That was really, really poor by Wolverhampton Wanderers to concede a goal, especially in that manner. But I think Wolves, didn't let the heads drop. They absolutely carried on playing exactly how they're going to play. And it was Gomes again on the counter-attack. It was from a Spurs corner. Basuma loses the ball at the edge of the box. And then Gomes picks it up and he passes out to Neto. And Pedro Neto absolutely legs it down the other end of the pitch. And he does it. And I thought to myself, maybe he took a touch too many. Maybe Emerson was going to get there. But then not only does he drag it back, he then finds Gomes, who made the initial tackle on Basuma. And then he puts the ball into the back of the net. And I just thought to myself, it's nothing less than what Wolves deserves. Wolves were the better side on the day. They were the more clinical side on the day. And ultimately, they deserved the 3 points, not Tottenham Hotspur.
Yeah, it was that first sort of 50 minutes for Spurs, I think, was their best passage of play. And there was a clear message to try and get that ball into the box much quicker than they were doing in the first half. And I think a key aspect of that and why they weren't able to do that was they were missing Pedro Porro and Udogie, who occupy very, very key positions for Spurs. And I think areas where Emerson Royal and Ben Davies just don't have the experience or probably the ability to do it as well as the two missing fullbacks were. I think that was a really key thing for Spurs, missing those two men. But as we've said, yeah, Pedro Neto as well in that second goal. He is so good, man. I love him. He is quality. I would absolutely love Arsenal to sign him because I think he is such a dynamic player. He's really two-footed and he looks so composed as well at his young age. Like you said, when it seemed like he took that first touch, he just chopped it back, completely took it past the defender and played a really, really nice pass. Perfect weight into Gomes, who almost couldn't miss. It was fantastic work from Neto, and he doesn't even look like he had that long injury spell, and who knows where Wolves would have been if he hadn't.
Yeah, well, based on last season, after 38 games, Wolves ended up on 41 points. So far this season, 25 games, 13 games less. They're on 35 points, only 6 worse off than they were the whole of last season. So they are definitely on course to do much, much better. And I will actually disagree with something you said right at the beginning of the analysis of the Spurs-Wolves game. And the fact that you said you can't wait to see what Wolves are going to do next season. I completely disagree because I think Wolves might be gutted over the summer. I think perhaps in a weird, twisted way, it is a good thing that Cunha got his injury and he might be out for the majority of the rest of the season, because it might keep people off the boil of how good he actually was. I think Wolves are going to have really strong trouble on their hand to try and keep a hold of Pedro Neto. I think Gomes is starting to develop into become a really good midfielder and one that dominates games midfield. And that Spurs midfield three is quality. It's really hard to dominate against Soto, and he almost did it single-handedly with the help of Lamina next to him. So I don't think next season is going to be one where Wolves fans are going to be excited. I think it's one where, they might struggle without some of their best players. But that's just my opinion of it. But Spurs, last 5 games, 2 wins, 2 draws, 1 loss. And obviously, and that's been since the turn of the year in the Premier League. They've also been knocked out of the FA Cup against Manchester City. Obviously, they never expected to be in this position, and I think they're probably just happy to be chasing for the Champions League places after the terrible season they had last year. But is it one where the wheels are slow, maybe not coming off, but slowing down at the wrong time?
I actually am going to be quite sympathetic towards Spurs. I think they have probably been hit the worst by injuries, I think it's fair to say, this season. I think they lost Maddison when he was in the absolute form of his life. He was having an incredible start to season. They then obviously lost Son through the Asia Cup when he was firing. He was their best player. They had that spell where they lost almost their entire back line besides... I think it was Porro was the only one fit or not suspended after that crazy City game where obviously Romero, Van de Ven and Udogie I think were all out for at least sort of 3 or 4 games. And now they have lost both Porro and Udogie. I think is a huge blow because they have really been their 2 key players. I think if they hadn't had any injuries through the season, they probably could have even been in the title race. I honestly think I've been very, very, very impressed by Spurs this season. I just think it's been bad luck and a little bit inconsistent at times. But to have this, I think, in your first season and sort of a rebuild is very, very positive. And they are still in and around that. They will definitely, I think, still be able to get top 5, which hopefully will be enough for Champions League football. I know United are starting to breathe down their necks a little bit now, but they do still have the quality, I think, to get the job done.
Well, I wish I could use injuries as my excuse for what reason I'm not doing so well in the quiz, but obviously I cannot do that, as it is time for the Football Fellowship halftime quiz. We're doing Guess the Player. Toby, what are the scores?
I don't like reading them out, Mev. It's 30-19 now after 5 games, after I got a very lucky 5-pointer last week. So it's an 11-point gap. 5 games still left to go, though, for the season, so a few more to be played. But, yeah, I feel like I'm sitting a bit too comfortably, and I'm a bit worried how difficult this week is going to be. I think you're going to have ramped it up.
I've ramped it up a little bit, but I think I've gone for more. I'm going to try and confuse you a lot more than I am to try and make it difficult, because I think sometimes it's maybe... Actually, no, I don't want to say what I'm about to say because I might throw you off.
No spoilers.
Spoilers, no spoilers. But yeah, if you're unsure of what we're talking about, we're doing Guess the Player, and we're doing Guess the Player based on their clubs they played for previously in the past, and we're doing Guess the Player based on their former teammates as well. You get 5 guesses. You get 1 player or club each time to help you with your guess, to help inform your decision. And the earlier on you get it, the more points that you get. So, that being said, Toby, since you are leading, winner's advantage. Do you want to go first or second?
I'm going to go first.
You're going to go first. Okay. Are you ready?
I am. I can't wait.
Try and sound a bit more excited. Okay, so your first, for Guess the Player, based on the clubs, your first club is Tokyo Verdy.
Tokyo Verdy? Blimey. Right, let's try and think of some people who've been to the Japanese league, I suppose, or Japanese players themselves. Gary Lineker, I think, played for Grampus when he went there. Tokyo Verdy. Podolski, I think, went to Vissel Kobe, but he may have played there. I don't think I know anyone specifically for Tokyo Verdy, so let's just go for Podolski in case he also went there.
It is not Luis Podolski, but I do think he did go to Japan. I think I probably forgot about him. But no, it's not.
I'm pretty sure he played with Iniesta in Japan.
Oh, wow. Okay, fair enough. Well, that's not it. So your second club for 4 points is Porto.
Porto. there's a couple of players have come to mind now. I'm thinking maybe Hulk could have gone to Japan. He obviously played for Zenit. I'm thinking, did Alexandre Pato ever play for Porto? He's one that's come to mind. Who else could be Porto? Maybe someone like Jackson Martinez. I think he went to China. Other players were Porto. I think that's probably all I've got in my head. Who did I say? It was Hulk, Pato, and Jackson Martinez. Let's go for Alexandre Pato.
It is not Alexander Pato, but good guess. So,
I'm not even sure if he played for Porto, to be honest.
I will neither confirm nor deny at this point. So, your third club for 3 points is Atletico Mineiro. I think I pronounced it.
Mineiro.
Mineiro. God, I can't speak.
I think that's a Brazilian team. And I was thinking Hulk last time. I think they've got a black and white badge. But who would the other teams be for Hulk? It would obviously be Zenit. Has he been at anyone else? Let's go for it. I'll be annoyed if it is and I don't say it. Let's go for Hulk.
It is Hulk.
Yes, nice.
Yeah. Well, the next club was going to be Zenit, and then the last team was going to be Shanghai. So.
Shanghai. Yeah, of course. Nice. Yeah. I'm happy with that. 3 points.
Yeah, well played. I think I nicely did 3 very well. To be fair, your knowledge was very exceptional on that. I didn't expect you to do as well as you did on that. So fair enough.
Oh, thank you, mate. You're too kind.
Yeah. I don't know how you went to Japan, Porto, Hulk, and I was just like, what? Maybe if you look back at the podcast when it's out, then you'll see my face. I'll just be like, how on earth has he done this? I'll just be like, oh yeah, okay. Anyway.
Looking forward to watching that. Right, go on then, mate. Your turn.
Okay.
And your first club for 5 points is Lyon.
Lyon, right. So, take a pick. A player who's come from Lyon, he's played for 5 different clubs. For some reason, the first players that come to mind when I think of Lyon are Bafétimbi Gomes, Lisandro Lopez, and like Dejan Lovren.
That's 3 cult players there.
Yeah, I know. I think it depends on that time when I was playing with Lyon for my FIFA career mode. So that's probably it. They've had loads. They've had Gonalons. They've had... Who was the guy who played for Arsenal as well? I think he went around for a few clubs. There's a Lyon player who went to Arsenal. He's a defensive... Oh, was it Flamini? Was it Flamini or was it someone else? I don't know. Who did Lovren play for? Lyon, Liverpool. I don't think he's done 5. Okay, let's go for... Yeah, go on. Is it? No. Crap. Okay. Let's go for Bafétimbi Gomes. It's not him.
It is not Gomes, unfortunately. Your second club for 4 points is Benfica.
Benfica. Okay, so it wouldn't have been... It could have... Lisandro Lopez was Argentinian, so he got to play for Benfica. But Lyon and Benfica, okay. And they don't necessarily have to have started in Lyon. That's what I'm thinking right now. So
nope, they certainly don't. It's
yeah,
could be any order really.
Yeah, so Lyon is obviously the least obscure. So Lyon don't tend to spend too much money. So has a player gone to Lyon from, well, not directly, or could have been directly, but for cheap? They like to grow a lot of their own players. Don't know, I'll say it. Lisandro Lopez.
It is not Lopez, unfortunately. No. Your third club for 3 points is Roma.
Right. If I think there's a No, I don't know the player. I can't remember the player's name, but I think there's a midfielder who's played for all 3 of these clubs. It might be Gonalons. Okay, I'm gonna. I can't remember his first name, but I will say Gonalons.
Gonalons is a good shout because he definitely has played for Lyon and Roma, I'm pretty sure. But he is not the player I'm looking for, unfortunately.
Okay.
And your fourth club for 2 points is Man United.
Man United. Hang on a minute. Man United. Roma. Leon Benfica. Okay, let's go Man United and Roma. Man United and Roma. It's not Chris Smalling. He's the first player that came to mind. Man United, Roma. Man United, Roma.
I think that's your best bet. Yeah, Man United, Roma, I think is probably a good link.
Yeah. God, no wonder I'm doing awful in the quiz. Trying to think. Forwards, midfielders, defenders.
I'll give you a little clue. The path is Benfica, then a blank team, which is your fifth club, which I won't say yet. Then Man United, then Roma, then Lyon.
Is it Raphael?
It is not Raphael, unfortunately.
Oh,
and
okay.
Your fifth and final team for a point, the one who sits between Benfica and United, is Chelsea.
Oh, God, okay. So, Man United, Chelsea, Benfica, Man United, Chelsea.
Benfica, Chelsea, Man United, Roma, Lyon is the order of clubs.
Oh.
He was also technically at Chelsea before Benfica too.
I don't know who this is.
I think you're going to kick yourself as well.
Will I?
I think so. The Man United and Roma link is through a certain special manager as well.
Or Jose Mourinho. Ah, for God's sake. He really just moved to Lyon as well. It's Nemanja Matic.
It is Nemanja Matic for a point. Yeah, he moved in January.
Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah.
No wonder.
A good point. A good point. But I reckon I thought
really.
you would have got that earlier. I was.
Well, that's meant to be the easier guess the player out of the two as well. Oh dear. Can I just concede? Right. Are you ready for your guess the player? Your second one.
I am.
Okay. Your first former teammate is Juan Mata.
Juan Mata. Okay. So we're looking at Chelsea, sort of 2010-ish. United, I suppose, 2013-ish for a few years. And Valencia before Chelsea. Who did he go to after United? If anyone. Can't remember, so I won't bother with that. I'm thinking maybe Chelsea, that sort of era. That's quite a fun Chelsea era. Who would have been there around then? Who's played for a number of teams? I'm not sure, actually. Or maybe Valencia before that. Let's go for David Villa.
It is not David Villa. Great shout. I'm not sure he's played for 5 different clubs, sir.
No, I'm not sure either.
No. Okay.
Not the best guess.
No. So, your second player is Marko Arnautovic.
Marko Arnautovic. Ooh, that's an interesting one. He's had a number of strange teams. Just looking at Stoke. He was obviously Inter Milan. He was, I think, Werder Bremen maybe before Stoke. And West Ham as well. The number there. I'm thinking probably it's going to be Stoke and West Ham. And then maybe played with Juan Mata in the Prem as well. So any Stoke players who would have also been at United or Chelsea, or West Ham players who would also been at Chelsea or United. Let's say... Chelsea to West Ham. Did he play for them? Demba Ba?
Is that your guess?
It is.
It is not Demba Ba.
No.
Your third player for 3 points is Ivan Perisic.
Oh, that's throwing a spanner in the works now. Oh, this is another player who's played for so many teams. It could be Spurs now, but maybe not. Who am I thinking of? Oh dear, this is going to be difficult. One player who's just come to mind, but I don't know where Juan Mata, but I'm thinking maybe Arnautovic at Stoke and Perisic. Oh no, that doesn't work. I was going to say Perisic at Bayern, but maybe that works. Let's go for Choupo-Moting.
It is not Choupo-Moting, but great guess. Your fourth player is Ilkay Gundogan.
Gundogan. This is tough because this is so many teammates who have played for so many clubs, but I like this. This is good. So we're looking at Dortmund, Barca, and City, really.
I'll give you that. I'll say, yeah, it is one of those. Not any of his previous ones.
I don't actually know anyone who Gundogan's played for. So, so City, is there anyone? Oh, City. I can't think of anyone. Dortmund. Who was obviously in that era at Dortmund? God, this is... Oh, could it be... Maybe it was Mata at Chelsea. Let's go for Andre Schürrle.
It is not Andre Schürrle. You are so close. Your last former teammate is Thibaut Courtois.
Bloody hell, this guy's been around. Courtois. Maybe at Madrid now?
I'll give you a clue since you are struggling. Thibaut Courtois was when he was at Genk.
A Genk? Bloody hell. Oh, is it... does this work? I think I don't know if it's right, but this would be a really good one if it is. Is it De Bruyne?
It is Kevin De Bruyne.
Oh, that is a great one. Who were all the teams? It was obviously Mata at Chelsea, I assume.
Yes, Arnautovic at Werder Bremen when he was on loan from Chelsea.
That is a great link.
Ivan Perisic was Wolfsburg. They were in the same team together.
Nice.
Gundogan, obviously Man City, and Courtois was at Genk. And I thought maybe Courtois, because of all the other teams, you would have gone nationality first rather than club. But he was in that very promising Genk side early on before he joined Chelsea.
Yeah, didn't they have like some beef as well, Courtois and De Bruyne? I think Courtois like stole De Bruyne's girlfriend or something.
Yeah,
there's a bit of beef there.
Yeah, I remember in the Champions League when Real Madrid played Man City, and there was like Kevin scores a penalty for all the cheaters out there. Like, yeah, all the people who've been cheated on. Yeah,
yeah. Oh, that was a really good one, and thanks for the hint at the end as well, because I think I would have struggled with that, despite it sort of being like a big player.
We do want to see us get points. Yeah. We should crack on because we are going on for a while. So, I am ready whenever you are for mine.
Right. Your first teammate for 5 points is Bernardo Silva.
Okay, so Bernardo Silva was Benfica. He was also Monaco, and then City, Man City. So it's gonna be one of them. Let's go for players with 5 different clubs. Stefan Jovetic.
It is not Stefan Jovetic, but I love that shout. What a player! He is one of those hidden cult players. He's so good.
So underrated.
Your second player for 4 points is the Brazilian defender Lucio.
See, for some reason, all I can think of is Inter Milan. And for some reason, I can't even think of any other club he's played for.
I'll give you a clue. I won't say the club, but he played for a couple teams in the Bundesliga, if that helps ring any bells.
For some reason, no. I'm assuming it's probably Bayern. But I can think of time frames here. Bernardo Silva is obviously current. Lucio isn't. Interesting. I don't even know. I don't know why, but let's go for Dante.
It is not Dante, unfortunately.
No.
Your third teammate for 3 points is Damien Duff.
Damien Duff's nan.
Shout out.
The listeners will have no idea what we're on about. But yeah,
And that's
Damien
fine.
Duff.
They don't need to.
Yes, absolutely do not need to. Oh God, I might edit that out. We'll see. Okay, so Damien Duff. Pretty sure he was at Chelsea. He was at Fulham. He was at Blackburn. I think those were the obvious ones. So I'm going to stick with them. Let's. Oh God, I'm struggling here. Let's go for. Damien Duff and Lucio were later. Bernardo Silva was more current. Oh, screwed. Let's go for Cesc Fabregas.
It is not Cesc Fabregas,
Yeah,
unfortunately. No. Your fourth player for 2 points is Ledley King.
Oh, God. Okay. Again, Toby, this is pre-2010. Spurs.
I'm pretty sure he's only played for one club, Ledley King. But if you're still fine blanks, I will give you the team that Lucio was as well, because that may help.
Now I'm thinking, have you gone for Andre Schürrle? No, no. Dustin Duff, no. King.
I will say Lucio was Bayer Leverkusen in the early 2000s.
There's a really fine crossover between Bernardo Silva and Lucio and Duff and King, actually. Bayer Leverkusen actually doesn't help me. I'm trying to think. Damien Duff, Ledley King. Christ, I'm going to have to pass. I don't have a clue.
No, that's fine. And your final player for a point is Nemanja Vidic.
Dear me, Vidic. Okay. Man United. Yep. Could go with other teams, but surely Vidic has to be Man United.
He is.
So, what the hell's going on here?
If you haven't got anyone, I'll give you. I'll give
Dimitar
you.
Berbatov.
Oh yes, you don't need the hint, mate. Yeah, well done. That's a big point.
Oh, I hate myself. I actually hate myself.
Yeah, so it was Bernardo Silva was Monaco in 14-15. Lucio was a few years at Leverkusen in the early 2000s. Damien Duff, Fulham, 2012-ish. Ledley King, obviously at Spurs after Leverkusen, and then Nemanja Vidic for a few years at United as well. So good point there, mate.
Yeah. What does that make the scores?
It is now 34-21 after 6 games played.
So you've increased the gap by 2. 3?
Yeah.
2. Yeah.
By two indeed.
Oh dear. Yeah. Oh God, I hate myself. And another team who will also be hating themselves are Luton Town, as they could have potentially snatched a point against Manchester United, but on the day Man United were just too good for them as they beat them 2-1, and Rasmus Højlund with 2 goals, proving the doubt is wrong, isn't he?
Yeah, 6-6 now. Maybe even more than 6-6 actually. He's had a couple of braces, but the youngest player in Premier League history to score in 6 consecutive games, which was very impressive. He seems to be very confident. He seems to be playing maybe as we expected him to do after his sort of international performances with Denmark at the start of the season, and really good to see because I think he's a very good young player. And United really played to their strengths this game, and I think they did it very, very well. They got a nice, comfortable early lead and were happy sitting back and trying to play that quick transitional football that we see. And I think they played it probably one of the best we've seen all season in terms of that system. They looked really, really quick. They looked really effective. And I think on another day, it probably could have been 4, maybe even 5 if they took those chances a little bit better. But yeah, I was quite impressed with Man United this week.
Yeah, 4 consecutive wins for them in the league, and then the fifth most recent game being a draw as well. One of the form teams in the league at the moment in time. But you have to say, it has been done without them playing scintillating, amazing football, but they're still managing to get the results. An XG of 2.98, like I said, absolutely should have taken some of the chances towards the end of the game. I think if it wasn't for some last-ditch goalkeeping and last-bit defending as well, they could have obviously had more. I think for Luton, a little bit disappointing, especially the first 2 goals. I think because they were kind of handed to Man United on a plate. They probably should have done better with the first one, especially considering Haaland just latched onto a bit of a back pass. But I think it's one where, Rob Edwards can be disappointed because he probably didn't expect to get anything out of the Man United game. Kind of a free hit, and the fact that they still did really well. However, we got to talk about Casemiro, because should have been sent off for a second yellow, Toby?
I think he was very lucky not to be. And I don't think there would have really been too many complaints from anyone if he was. And I completely understand that substitution, because I think even one fairly tame challenge after that and he would have been off. So yeah, I think probably a bullet dodged, I think, in that sense. What about yourself?
Yeah, I agree. If he wasn't already on a yellow, he definitely would have got a yellow. And I think that's one that really infuriates fans because, it shouldn't matter what the situation is. If the foul deserves what the foul deserves. So I think he should have got a second yellow. But I do think I want to give another shout out to, again, I know we've done this on the podcast before, but Kobe Mainoo, his fellow midfield partner. Again, I thought he was excellent in that midfield. Some even talk about him being in the England side. I think, give him time. You don't need to rush him, but he is having a fantastic, fantastic season. And one team season who's potentially tailing off at just the wrong time is Newcastle, as this is as they draw 2-2 at home to Bournemouth. And now I think this is the 4th match at home which they haven't won. The last time they won at St James's Park was the game against Fulham when Raul Jimenez got sent off. And another performance where attack is great, but the defence not so.
Yeah, it's been a really funny spell for Newcastle. I don't think we can sort of really predict how the game's going to go a lot of the time, it seems. They really seem to have lost control in their midfield. Their defence seems to really be lacking in confidence. And it was a very strange game. It was a good game. It was a good end-to-end game. And I think Bournemouth played very well, and Newcastle at times also played very well. It just, I don't know. It feels like Newcastle should be performing a lot better at the moment than they are, given the quality that they do still have in that squad.
Absolutely, but it doesn't help that when Bournemouth take their first goal, it is just a result of Martin Dubravka getting a back pass from Sven Botman, and he just slips. And I just looked at that goal and I just thought to myself, oh, that is so gutting to watch, because there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. There's no skill involved from the opposition team. It's not a world-class piece of play. It's just a mistake, and ultimately a slip like that can happen. But Newcastle didn't let it get to their heads too much. They got straight back in with an Anthony Gordon penalty. And it was really nice to see, I think, because I think it definitely was a penalty. But it was nice to see a shirt pull get pulled back for a penalty, because of the fact that they often get missed. And you see them from corners all the time. So I think the fact that the referee actually acknowledged it and VAR actually told the referee to go and have a look at it, I think was, a step in the right direction. But then for Bournemouth, then they ended up making it 2-1 thanks to Semenyo. And I think Semenyo is a player who, has a very underrated season so far. But Bournemouth, they just can't seem to keep clean sheets at the moment either. Madrici getting the first goal, I think, in 3 years. And Newcastle ultimately end up just with a point. And I think, Bournemouth would be quite disappointed they didn't win it.
Yeah, they've been playing pretty well all season, Bournemouth, but still struggling to pick up wins a lot of the time. And as you said, holding on to leads is something they have struggled with a little bit recently. And I think if they could have had a few more of those points that they have been able to hold on to, they would be much higher in the table. They're definitely safe from relegation, I think. I think they're definitely good enough to be staying up. But it just feels like at times they could have sort of be pushing on and be a few places higher, sort of maybe even pushing into the top half of the table. yeah, as you've said, defensively still some things to work on. They've got a double game week coming up in FPL, and I was considering bringing in a Bournemouth defender as a bit of a differential, but I don't think I'm particularly sold on that at the moment.
No, you absolutely shouldn't, considering I've had Neto in goal for like the last 10 weeks and he's done absolutely diddly squat. But yeah, Bournemouth winless in the last 6, and funnily enough, similar to Newcastle, the last time they did win a game in the Premier League was against Fulham. So, if you're on a bit of a losing run or not a winning run, you want to be playing against Fulham. But one team who wish they could be playing Fulham is definitely West Ham, because on the back of being smashed by Arsenal 6-0, they didn't respond. And in fact, they were the worst team on the day away to Nottingham Forest, as Nottingham Forest beat them 2-0. Worrying signs for the Hammers, and potentially even David Moyes out.
Yeah, they are now winless in 8 in all competitions, 11-0 in their last 3 games overall, and it's just looking very, very flat. There's a lot of work, I think, to do to really get them back to how they were playing at the start of the season, and they've got to do it pretty quick because things are looking very, very worrying. I think they really have missed Paqueta. He was having a fantastic season, and it just feels like that void has not been filled at all. They do still have some really quality players around those sort of areas. Kudus, Ward-Prowse, Jared Bowen, I think, are fantastic players. But even with those players, Paqueta still stood out, really ran the show. And since he's been out, it seems like the form has coincided with that.
Yeah, and it really doesn't help that when you bring in one of the players to reinforce your side with the absence of Paqueta and some other players, that it is Calvin Phillips, and he ends up getting himself sent off in this game. First of all, a yellow for an argument, and then the second one for a foul, which was definitely a foul on Morgan Gibbs-White with a high boot, and he just clipped his toes. And I think it epitomised really West Ham game so far and the new year so far, because the last win was against Arsenal all the way back in December now. So definitely need to turn things around, and you expect a response. So I think that's what's most disappointing. But for Nottingham Forest, it was a much needed win, because they are down in the relegation zone. They haven't won in a couple of games now. And the fact that they put in a very good performance against Newcastle's side, didn't get the win last weekend. But now this time, not only did they get the win, but I think most importantly for Nottingham Forest and Núñez is the fact that they kept a clean sheet in this game, which going forward should only do wonders.
Yeah, it's definitely an area where they have sort of struggled, I think, in that defensive. And going forward, I think recently they've been really, really good. Callum Hudson-Odoi now 3 goals in 3. I still can't believe he's only 23 as well. That was really surprising when I saw that. I thought he must have been sort of 26, 27 now. He seems like he's been around for ages. But he's in really good form. Awani is back, and he is a huge part of that Nottingham Forest team. For me, I think he is not one of the best strikers in the league, but for me, someone I always keep an eye on. He has everything I think I look for in a striker. He's strong, he's quick, he's a really good finisher, and I think that's going to be a huge boost for Forest, having him back starting every week as well.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's just so exciting to see Awani up top, Morgan Gibbs-White behind him, and Elanga and Callum Hudson-Odoi on either wing. I think that is a very, very exciting front four. And like we said, if we can just get the defence sorted, then going forward, then, who knows what they could achieve. But one side who are really trying to achieve absolutely everything and trying to go for Champions League is Aston Villa. And they finally got back to winning ways as they beat Fulham 2-1 at Craven Cottage. And this was obviously the Ollie Watkins show, wasn't it?
Yeah, he's getting better and better. He's very, very, very good. We spoke about him, I think, in sort of quite fair detail maybe a week or two ago, saying how he is really good. One of his key best bits for me is the way he stretches the play and the way he stretches teams, the work he does off the ball, the runs he makes beyond the defensive line. And not only does he have that, he also has very, very good close control, very finishing, very good link-up play. He is becoming a really complete striker and is certainly the main man in that Villa side, and one of the reasons why they are so high in the league this season. And in terms of Fulham, they've got a pretty decent looking striker of their own in Rodrigo Muniz. He's now scored 4 goals in 3 games. Fulham did have some pretty decent chances in this game as well, so they're not looking bad either. A fairly good performance, I think, from both sides. Villa ultimately coming out on top, though, and picking up a very important 3 points in their race for Champions League.
Yeah, very much so. And it really mattered because obviously they lost last weekend to Man United, and Man United are obviously on a bit of a resurgence. So the fact that they got back to winning ways against Fulham, who are on a bit of an up and down season so far, but I think, Fulham fans, I think they will absolutely take that. And like you said, I think the fact that Muniz has started to do some bits now as well, I think obviously with they had Raul Jimenez, obviously he's come off the ball a little bit so far, so the fact that Muniz went out on loan to Middlesbrough, come back, and he's actually been banging the goals. I think he's still in his early 20s as well, so hopefully with him the potential can really go forward. And I think we should finally finish off by talking about Crystal Palace and Everton, which we're recording this on Monday night before the game. But obviously the breaking news is that Roy Hodgson has not been sacked, but they've parted ways. I think it's the official terminology that Crystal Palace used. Obviously, he was heavily rumoured on last Thursday, actually, that Roy Hodgson was going to get sacked by Crystal Palace. But obviously, Roy Hodgson then felt ill, and then since then, they haven't been able to make the announcement. But thankfully, and most importantly, that Roy Hodgson is fit and he is fine and he's been discharged from hospital. And I think now is probably the right time for him to leave amicably and, with his health up high, because he has done a fantastic job for Crystal Palace over his 2 spells, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's been a really, really good servant of the club, and I think a lot of sort of the dispel at Palace at the moment is definitely not directed towards him. I think it's directed towards sort of their management of the youth academy and the management of the club as a whole. So I think for both parties, it's probably a good decision. I think it is about time that Palace sort of hire a bit more of an exciting manager, maybe. I don't mean that in any disservice to Roy Hodgson. I think he's been very, very good at keeping Palace where they are, but I think the fans and I think sort of ourselves, we maybe want to see Palace pushing on a little bit further rather than just sort of having that steady ship that sort of finishes around 14th, as we sort of say every season. So it's a good appointment in terms of Gisner. He obviously had that fantastic Europa League run with Frankfurt, someone a bit more exciting. And despite saying all of this a few seasons ago, they did have Patrick Vieira, who is on a very good run, and they decided to sack him after what was a very short, poor run of form, I think, in terms of how he had the team playing, and quite a surprising sacking. So hopefully their new manager is able to get a bit more comfortable and get a slightly longer spell. But I wouldn't be surprised again if for some reason he gets sacked and Hodgson fancies a third spell.
Yeah, you wouldn't be surprised at all. But I think Patrick Vieira actually did a decent job. I think you need to remember even further back to Frank de Boer when he came from Ajax, I think it was, and he lost his first 7 games and he got sacked after that. That was even worse. And I think the fact that Crystal Palace even survived that season, it just goes to show that, Crystal Palace are a very resilient club and they will obviously continue on fighting. And to be fair, like I said, even the fact that Roy Hodgson is 76, I wouldn't be surprised if he fancied a third spell, because I think, fair play to him, because he just loves football and he loves managing. And I think if I was 76, I'd be long and gone retired. So, credit to him. But I think that is everything for this week's episode of the Football Fellowship podcast. Thank you everyone for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, please give us a like and a subscribe. It really helps us out, helps the algorithm boost our videos to get out to more people who will obviously love our channel, love the football content that we produce. And if you're listening to us on Spotify, please give us 5 stars. Answer the questionnaire, let us know what you think, and we will see you in the next one.